With this week's promo reveals, we saw a lot of notoriable people express their concerns and discontent with Bushiroad's practice towards these new promos. And these promos paint a very concerning picture for the potential future design plan that Bushiroad is taking for the card game as a whole. And this is a subject that I personally think should be discussed in the community, as it's an important thing to highlight for what is happening to Vanguard. Yes, they already went over a certain amount of promos which are pretty impactful for the respective decks and clans, but today I want to go over the broader aspect and talk about the whole thing about these Japanese promos, or just these very impactful promos as a whole, and what their impact is on a card game like Cardfight Vanguard. This video was originally recorded on Tuesday, so long before we've got the latest announcement about these new promos being introduced into the English format. So we're going to get an English release of certain impactful promos. Now, this does change some aspect, but also not really. But I will discuss it at the end of the video once I discuss all the points, so you have an understanding of what the issues are concerning promos, and then I can explain what this updated news will actually mean for Vanguard. Stand up, Vanguard! So before we go into the nitty-gritty of this video, let's talk about the basics and explain what promos actually are. And you're probably already aware of they are, but for anybody that isn't, promo cards are basically an extra type of release product that a company, in this case Bushiroad, can employ to either promote their game or give players an extra freebie for whatever extra thing they do for the company. They can add these cards to magazines, they can put them into booster boxes, maybe potentially in booster boxes of other sets. They can put them in a collaboration of a product with other companies. They can give them away at events. So these cards are, what the name implies, a promotional product. And it's a really good way for a game to basically entice in new players. They can put these promo packages or these promo cards into a product from a different brand or a different type of genre, and those players or those fans of that genre might then stumble upon Vanguard and potentially could get into the game. That is what the selling point of promos are in general. Now, with that said, let's go over the basics of what promo cards should be. Because promo cards, as they are stated, are promotional products. They aren't necessarily main selling points of the official products, the booster boxes, the trial decks. These are just extra freebies given on top of that, or to other events, which in some cases aren't really advertised to your core player audience. So with it in mind, promos should either be reprints of cards, so they don't really clutter up the card pool themselves, or they can potentially lower the secondary market of these cards. They can also be alternate arts of already existing cards. This is a nice way to maybe entice fans of different franchises into your game by making a card that looks like something from their franchise or from their game, but doesn't really impact the game itself. Another thing that promos can be are just really generic cards. In Vanguard, it can be either triggers, vanilla cards, or just a card with a really basic skill like on attack plus 5k power, or when it boosts plus 5k power, something that doesn't have a high power standard that could potentially be a really good card in whatever deck you play. And the final thing that a promo should be is a gimmick / not playable card. This can be a card that does something so out of whack what the archetype or clan originally plans to do that it's not really suitable for that deck at all, but it has a really nice artwork, or it has something that should entice the persons which you're targeting with your promotional card. And it can also be literally something that we've seen in Magic the Gathering, something like a silver border card that doesn't allow it to be played. And in Vanguard, we've seen this where we have a promotional card that isn't allowed to be played. Now, with that in mind, something that promos shouldn't be are mechanically unique cards. Basically, a skill that hasn't been printed before, and most importantly, something that can be impactful to their respective deck or clan. So, a card that suddenly becomes a staple or can be really good for the deck is not good to be a promo card, because it can be really annoying for players to get their hands on. Now, another thing that it shouldn't be is archetype-specific support. So if you have archetypes within your game, and that Vanguard has that, and if you do not support this archetype on a regular basis, but support them via promos, can again be really annoying for fans that enjoy that archetype. And the final thing that promos should not be is just generic staples. Mechanical unique cards are one thing, and archetype support cards are another, but if a card is a generic staple, that then means that all players that play that clan, or whatever thing that a staple is generic from, must get their hands on, which makes it a sought after commodity, which can make a really annoying or really dangerous price spike on the secondary market. Now, you can think to yourself, well, what's the big issue of having promos with a mechanical unique card effect, a archetype support card, or a generic staple? Is that really that much of an issue, and why must it specifically be only reprints, alternate art, generic cards, or gimmicky cards? What is the issue here if you do not follow that standard? The problem is, and I already highlighted that a little bit, is that if you have cards that are important for deck building or for a specific deck, you get an issue within the secondary market of your card game. Promo cards by nature are hard to come by. They are definitely less printed than your generic cards within the sets themselves, making it tougher to get your hands on then on the secondary market, making their prices spike. And on top of that, even if there's no secondary market, because some games don't even have the secondary market, it becomes annoying to get those cards, because if they're only given away at a certain event, players that cannot go to that event cannot get those cards for the cheap, and therefore are forced to get them for the high prices on the secondary market. These type of privileges are really annoying that are a factor with promos. This is something you cannot combat if you make promo cards in a card game. The only way that you can alleviate this issue is making those promos not sought after. If this is the case, but the promo is just a generic 10k vanilla, nobody gives a crap about that promo, and you won't have this issue. But then again, the company, in this case Bushiroad, wants to make those promos at least something enjoyable or enticing to get, because why otherwise would you get that magazine, get that product, or go to that event? There must be an extra reason, and they usually use that promo as a way to get your attention. This already is an annoying thing because the prices can spike, and it can be annoying for people to play their deck, because if they get a deck right at the box or buy a new set and expect that they can play the deck immediately, then figuring out that there is a promo you need to get your hands off, which is a staple and probably 4 of, can be a buzzkill for anybody that's trying to start a new game and has no idea how they might get their hands on that specific card. Because not only can a price spike be annoying enough, there's also a high possibility that because the quantity of that promo is so low, that there might not even be another copy on the secondary market the moment that you try to play the deck, as there are just not enough in print and nobody is selling their copies at the time. And that as a result can mean that certain decks cannot even be playable for new players no matter how much money they have access to, which is not a good thing for a game to have. Now this is already quite annoying on its own, but Vanguard has an extra layer on top of this issue, because we have something that is called the Japanese exclusion problem. And any TCG that is originated from a Japan company has this issue, because Vanguard is created in Japan, and that means that everything comes from a Japanese executive decision. So a lot of promos are made with the Japanese market in mind. And Japan has way more events, way more products, and way more magazines or other collabs systems that allows a company like Bushiroad to have a way to distribute these promos. Meaning they can print way more promos in Japan and distribute them than they could ever do that in the West, which results in a discrepancy in the amount of promos that the West will get and Japan will release. Now, if Bushiroad follows the line of that promo should be reprints, alternate arts, generic cards, or gimmicky cards that aren't playable, then this is no problem. But the moment that Bushiroad makes promos that are mechanically unique, archetype support, or they are generic staples, that is then where we get into the dangerous territory, as while this discrepancy then also increases, this then results in the fact that Japan still has access to these promos, which makes decks playable, but we in the West won't. We will miss certain promos. And as I explained previously, if a new player comes in the game and these staples can be expensive, but if they aren't even available on the secondary market, that means we cannot even play these decks. Now, with this Japan exclusion problem, this can result that even on release of a set, can result in the deck be unplayable because we lack the specific promo which was designed to make these decks work. Japan has them, but we in the West won't. Which can be even a bigger problem because that can result that your product, which has yet to be sold, can therefore sell less successfully because the players in the West know that a certain amount of cards or a certain amount of percentage of your product is effectively garbage as it's unplayable straight out of the box. This is a dangerous slippery slope that can create from something like these promos. Now, another issue here is that if we do get these promos from Japan, it can result into a gigantic price spike, as not only do we have less ways to distribute these promos in the West, this then therefore also results in the higher chance of a lower quantity card pool of that specific promo circulating in the player base, making these cards skyrocket in price on release. We have seen this many times before, especially in the VR. We've seen this with Twin Blader just right now, as happening for DP, but we saw it last year with Miromaru, which was around $50 a pop, and who knows if that card is still at that same price range. These type of things happens because we have this exclusion issue with Japan promos and promos in the West, which then also are promos which are important staples for their respective deck. Now that is basically the generic story of what promos are, how they work, and what type of negative impact they have. Now let's go to today's world and talk about the issue that's now at hand. We are in a situation where we're starting to see more and more of these staple promos. You might think to yourself, this is a problem with the V era and this is something that just happened. Well, the issue is, this isn't something new. As far as I'm aware, this is a problem that was always existent in Vanguard. I personally started playing Vanguard mid-Jira around 2015, 2016. And even then, there were promos that were exclusive to Japan, which we didn't have in the West. An example that I know of a friend of mine that played Murakumo was annoyed about the fact that a promo called Temba wasn't available for us, which was available in Japan. We did get access to Temba, but there was a time delay. I'm not aware how long this delay was. This could be a couple of months, maybe a year, but there was a difference between the release of this promo. But a promo which I am really aware of is the one for Gear Chronicle that was Take Away Dragon. This promo card was a really good card in combination with the Time Leap engine. The thing is, Japan got its hand on this promo right around the time that the Time Leap engine was released. So during the time that the Elite Four set, GBT5, was released to Japan. That's when they also got this promo. So they immediately could build the complete package of the deck. We in the West, however, needed to wait almost a half a year, maybe a bit longer, before we got this promo. And then because it was a promo, and it was in the most top competitive meta deck, meant that this promo was hella expensive because it was an annoying promo to get. Yes, they later put it into a set in the extra clan booster, but that was, I believe, a year later. But that still doesn't justify the issue that they generated by doing it via this way. Now, if we go to today's world and we see what now the current trend is, we see that more and more of these promos are getting impactful. The interesting thing, however, Bushiroad did something different than just making a set with an incomplete deck and then giving a promo to finish that off. They created decks earlier this year that were complete. They did their complete thing, but then afterwards they introduced a promo to make those decks stronger to compete with current day standards. Good example are of course the Tri-Free decks, Next Stage, Altmal and Asha. But Clarence or Dragon is also one of those decks. These decks were complete on their set, and then later they released new promos to upgrade their potential. This is something I have less issues with than creating promos that are mandatory to complete their decks, because the decks were already complete, but they upgrade the deck to then make them a little bit more competitively viable before they get their next wave of support that would probably be a year away. So they gave the players a little bit of extra oomph. Now the issue here, however, is with those promos, if we get to the next wave of support, these promos must be in the set, because if they aren't, and Bushiroad decides to build upon those decks with those promos already in mind, then that can lead to a situation where once we get it in the West and we do not have access to these promos, that we're actually missing a piece of the engine, which was those promos, which we won't have. So that can be a really dangerous thing if they do not add those things later on. Now the main issue is, and what basically sparked this video as well as the video of yesterday, and also a lot of discussion on the community, is that with the release of VBT 11, we also saw brand new promos which fixes a lot of issues of those decks. Almost every deck in VBT 11, Victor, Greg, Isabel, Shiranui, and Tavis were decks that did their thing but felt a bit off. They felt as if they missed a certain piece to their engine. And hold and behold, once they revealed the promos for this set, we saw a promo for Tavis, which was insanely good. We saw a promo for Victor, which fixes his main issue. We saw a promo for Isabel, which is basically mandatory for the deck to function, and we saw another promo for Shiranui, which was insane to make the deck even better. And on top of that, Shiranui also had another promo, which was again a vital engine piece, which made the deck function. So we see more and more of these promos, which are super impactful and that make the deck work even better and better. And this is something that shouldn't be the practice of a card game, because we don't know in the West if we would get these promos. And as I explained within this video, Bushiroad is ticking off all the checkboxes of things you should not do. These new promos are mechanically unique, there are archetype specific support, and there are generic staples to certain degrees. So this is a very dangerous practice that they are performing right now, which I am not sure if they're gonna keep doing this for every single set moving forward, as we see this more and more often as if it's the new norm. This is not a good thing, because if they're gonna keep this trend going, it can result in the situation that either we in the West will play with incomplete decks, because we will miss a specific vital card in every single deck moving forward, or they're gonna give us these cards, or certain of these cards, and they will hella be expensive, and it makes it almost impossible for people to play their decks unless they pay an $100 to $200 upfront for just the staples of these promos, if these promos will be somewhere around the Twin Order price range all the way up to the $50 of Miyamaru. And if that's gonna be the standard, then I have no clue if this game can sustain itself on such a practice, because not only do you need to have those promos, which can be a pain in the ass to get, but you also still need to buy the sets themselves, which gives you incomplete decks, which isn't something that people will enjoy at all. Now, does this change a lot? Well, not really, because for one, we don't know if all these promos are gonna be in this promotion pack, and two, we don't know how well it's going to be distributed. So these cards can be really hard to attain or can be very easy to attain. The only upside about this new news is that at least some of these decks, some of these archetypes can have the capability to be played at their full power. That is at least a silver lining from this update. Now, I am happy that we're going to get at least some of these promos, and I hope that they're going to rectify it by introducing all these promos and at least make them very easy to attain. This can be in the form of a special promo pack that will be included in every single box or with every single purchase, or some easy way to get them without actually pricing up the price tag of these promos like we've seen in the past. Now, the rest of the points in this video still stands, that's why I'm still uploading this video, but I just want to add this extra information that we now know that some of these promos at least are being transferred to the English format, which is at least something, but it's definitely not enough to fix the problems that this whole promo debacle started. So I hope that this is a one-off story, that this is just a thing that happened with VBT 11 and it's not gonna continue forward with VBT 12 whatsoever. Currently, as we're looking with the releases right now, it doesn't really look that's the case. Gurgwit looks to be a very solid deck so far. Fenrir looks interesting. We have the deck for Genesis, the Astropode, which is also looking quite good. But we have to wait and see what Vanquisher is going to do, and what we're going to see for Angel Feathers. So far I am a bit more optimistic for VBT 12, but this whole thing with VBT 11, and it came right after the issue with Luard, which came right after the issue with Sazan, isn't really a good look for Bushiroad. this year, 2020, is probably not one of their finest years, and it is not good as seen as we're about to head into a new era. And I really, really, really want to end this year on a positive note so we can be very excited for what Overdress can provide for the game. So with that said, the one thing I want you to take away from this video is to be really aware of what these promos can do for a card game, as everything that I talked about in this video isn't exclusive to Vanguard. This can be taken to any card game that uses promos to some extent. And I mean, anybody that's into the Magic Gathering sphere knows what type of shit show just happened with these special promotional cards for the Walking Dead series. I mean, this isn't unique to Vanguard. So be aware of what's happening, but don't think that this is going to be the end of Vanguard itself, as it's not a Bushiroad exclusive problem. But that said, it should not mean that they are excused of this. We should make this problem aware to them that hopefully they're not gonna continue this in the future. I'm not a fan of making these more negative type of videos, but sometimes when there's an issue arising in Vanguard that should be addressed, then I have to make a video talking about this issue to at least make people aware of what happening. And who knows, maybe Bushiroad watches these videos and takes a note or two and can potentially or hopefully change some of their design practice with these promos or whatever issue that arises within the community. So with it all said and done, I'm gonna end this video and we're going to do a more positive one in the next one. So as always, I'm Mr. Time Leap and I see you guys in the next one.